Hello Internet. Today we have this Gigabyte 4070 Ti Super, I think. WindForce Max. WindForce 3 Max. This one came with an arrow indicating some knocked off capacitors on the back. All of that is most likely damaged by shipping inside of a pre-built. I believe customer who sent these, there's 10 of these, ranging from 4070 Ti's to 4080s to 4090s. Um, about 9 of them on the shelf. This one's 10th. Every single one of them is fixed. So let's see if we can fix this one. Not a bad card by any means if anybody's out there interested getting a 4070 Ti. Particularly interesting fact about this one is that some of them have cracked PCB, but the crack is small. Yet somehow I did not have to dig into the crack to fix the card. But I still had to reball the core and the memory chip and fix a few ripped pads. But at the very least, the cracked PCB, while it's still cracked, but it did not seem to cause any issues. So I'm guessing no vital traces were in that general area. So that's good. Gigabyte finally learning something. Or maybe the crack just wasn't big enough. Who knows? So all of them came with the various types of damages. Most of them are capacitors on the back. Some had more, some had less. One had a BIOS switch ripped off the board completely. No, it was a different board. It was a 4080 maybe. So the BIOS chip was actually on the back, and it was actually behind the back cover. As you can see here, I have to remove the screws to get the back cover off. So I'm a bit shocked to see how in the world could a BIOS chip get ripped off the board when it was installed like somewhere in here. And if we were to look on the back cover, it was behind the cover. It was like right here. How did they get in there? I have no idea. A couple of capacitors were ripped off as well, so maybe they did it on purpose, or maybe they shoved the screwdriver in there, just kind of went. I have no idea. Who cares? We got it fixed anyway. It doesn't matter. Whatever the problem is, if it's repairable, I'll fix it. Doesn't matter how long it's gonna take. I'll get it fixed. I'm not the greatest GPU repair technician out there. I don't even think I'm worthy of the title. I'm just a guy with no life, no wife, no kids, no nothing. Do repairs all day. I wake up, first thing I do, you think first thing I do I go to pee? Or dinner or lunch or breakfast, whatever? Nope. First thing I do is go fix something. Fix the 4090. This morning I woke up, 4090 from last night was fixed. Or at least it posted. I couldn't do it anymore. I went to sleep, woke up. First thing I did, come here, put it together, and run some tests. Alright, so a little bit of twist on the board as usual with damage. Yeah, so there's a bit of a twist on the board. It's not easily noticeable when you're looking at it like this, but when it's rocking like this, there's a little bit of rocking play. Anyway, who cares? Let's go ahead and fix the capacitors on the back. Though that should probably be the last thing you fix. But given the fact that these two capacitors are kind of in a way that will prevent the card from getting detected in the first place, so I wouldn't even be able to run a memory test. I have to fix them first. So let's go and fix them. There we go. So 2 caps in here. Perfect. Looks like only one trace needs to be fixed. Nothing here, nothing here. This one's not even cracked. Good. So it looks like all we need is just these 2 caps. That's very good. Now, one thing I'd like to mention about the camera that I'm using right now, the microscope camera, is that I chose to downgrade. And the reason why, let me show you. So yeah, that's the camera. It's a very affordable camera. I don't know if it's actually doing 4K or not. Most likely not. Probably upscaled, because China, they're all lie about their products. And so, but who cares? The quality is good. It does give me 60 frames per second. Then I watched Soldering video about this camera and I was very tempted, and so I got it. And I put it back in the box almost about just a few weeks later, because I got sick and tired of this camera. This camera is it's almost it's $300 in the U.S., $200 on AliExpress. AliExpress is exactly where I got it from. I do not like it. While the image quality is great, it is extremely dark, and getting the lights adjusted so that things look right was impossible. The exposure levels, the ISOs, frame rates, whatever settings you try, you can't even dial in the white balance on that. It was just horrible. I just ended up switching back to this, and the reason why I wanted to change the camera was because this camera was acting up. For whatever reason, it would switch to like 5 frames per second or something. It was very choppy. So what I ended up doing is I took it apart, and there are two PCBs sandwiched together. So what I ended up doing is I used the gold guard pan on the connectors, on the pins, and that was it. And it stopped giving me this choppy. It would still give me, high resolution display, but it would be super choppy and whatnot. But right now it's very good. Everything is exactly what I wanted. Dial in the light a little bit. Actually, I want some more light for myself there. Okay, there we go. So good, decent quality image. Very good quality image compared to my old camera, obviously. And so today we're going to be trying the flux from China. This is Mechanic Nano Flux. I forgot what the model number of this is, and I do not like this flux. The one thing I do like about this flux is that it's very clear, and it doesn't evaporate much. It works well with high temperatures. It does not solidify. It cleans easily, but you can see how stringy this is. So that's a problem sometimes. Sometimes it makes this flux go places where I don't want it to go. And so it seems like it's good for micro soldering, and I tried it a few times, and it performed well, with the exception of tinning pads. There's something about it. Maybe it just wants to have a hot board. I'll show you what I mean. Hold on a sec. Let me go ahead and scrape away. I forgot. I should have done that first. I need to expose some of that copper there on that trace there. So you see that copper being exposed, and with that flux, it's very difficult to tin that trace. I don't know why that is. It just doesn't like to stick. It kind of tries, but it struggles to stick to the trace. I managed to get it done now, but like I said, it's usually hard. And all these 10 cards, 9 cards that I fixed before, earlier, I've tried this flux so many times, and I'm just not finding it very reliable for pad repairs. At the very least, the way I do it. So maybe you're doing it differently. It'll probably work differently for you. So more power to you, Now let's solder this thing. Pad here. But other than that, it's a good flux, as For whatever reason, I still prefer my good old Stereo junk that I've used for quite some time. That just works for microsoldering the best. I have not seen flux that's the best, that's better than what I have. And as I said, it's best for me because of the way I do things. Not necessarily applies to everybody. Everybody does their things a little bit different. So if you're watching me do things, it's best if you stick. If you're like trying to copy me with your repair methods and whatnot, then you should probably copy the materials as well, because you'll know it would work. But if you like my methods, but you copy materials of someone else, then you know those materials will probably not work with my methods, and that's why it took me a while to figure all this out. Let's put some mask on that pad right there. Get that cured. This is the light that I use. Axun Ting Dang Song, whatever that translates to. I don't know, my Chinese is terrible. Who cares? I like this lamp because it can work on the battery and it can also work on the USB, so if the battery goes dead, I can plug it in and use it. It has good power. Gives me the cure time is minimal. Though the timer here is like 90 seconds. That's a little too much. Yeah. Too much time. I wish it was less. I wish it had like a 15-second, and I wish it was like a one button operation, but instead they had two buttons, which I completely disabled, and I just ended up soldering my own button at the very top. That's basically on and off, on and off. That's it. That button makes night and day difference when it comes to using this light, because otherwise these buttons on the side that they created that are confusing, not intuitive whatsoever, it was a nightmare to operate this light. But who cares? That's just the way I do things. Like I said, it's my way, and it's different. Alright, so in here, I'm going to use a different flux. This flux is from Black Horse Repair guy. And the reason why I'm using this one now is because it's easy to clean. There we go. Just wanted to put some solder on those pads. And let's go ahead and bring in the capacitors that we're going to be stealing from another Gigabyte card. See, this flux is easy to clean with alcohol. So it's easy to clean from under the chips, under the capacitors, around the capacitors. That's why I use this flux for that particular purpose. I also use it for other reasons, but this is going to be one of the reasons. One of the points in repair where I will be using this flux. And I like the way it smells. It smells really nice. So dip some alcohol and it'll probably dissolve itself, but I don't have time, so just gonna help it out with the brush. It doesn't dissolve fast, but it dissolves good. So, and that's what's important. The solving process, I can speed it up with heat, alcohol, with the brush, with the blower, whatever means, but it gives me a very, very clean board, not just on the surface, but also under and around the parts. So And that is why I use it. Let's apply some more mask. I'm just gonna do clear mask here. That's a big blob. It's okay. That mask reminds me of that nano flux from Mechanic. But that's not flux. That's a mask. So I'm gonna mask this around. This mask is soft when it's hot, so if anything goes wrong, I can remove it just by heating it up. And I can also see what's behind it. You do not want this mask for pad repairs under the chips because it gets soft, as I said. It will allow all the solder to escape. You do not want that. So if you want, basically what I'm trying to say is that you're gonna need to use a different mask for just a pretty much regular mask if you're doing BGA pad restoration. But this is more for like a decoration. This mask I use for when I'm running a wires because it cures really quick because it's clear and it's easily removable. Compared to this, for example, this Mechanic 3S, this stuff is rock hard. So, oh, FedEx just came in. FedEx just dropped off a couple of boxes. One is a tote. I've never seen anybody shipping a GPU in a tote. Alright, who cares? We could check if the data lines are working, I suppose. Let's do that real quick. Yep, everything good. Looks good. Let's see if we can. So the card's probably not going to boot, so we can go straight into the memory test. Just like the rest of them. Most likely going to have errors on A1, which is going to be this chip here. Most likely a few RIT pads. In some cases, at least 3 cards, which is not common by any stretch of imagination. 3 memory chips were actually had RIP pads on the chips, not only on the board, but on the chips too, which is kind of new. Not so much new, but not common. So I had to replace at least 3 chips. So let's go into the memory test. See if we can confirm our suspicion with the A1. So we're running a test. GPU is detected and A1. There we go. Give me 1 beep. Beep. Now give me 2 beeps. Beep beep. Okay. Shut down. So all that's left to do now is to lift the core, lift the memory chip, most likely a few RIT pads under the memory, hopefully nothing under the core. One of the cards had like a whole row of pads ripped. Had to re-bowl it like 3 times because once I put it on, it gave me errors on the other chip. Then it gave me errors on another chip. One stubborn pad was giving me was lacking connection. It was one of the pads that got oxidized on the board. Couldn't see it, but it was there, and it refused to accept the solder. So you can reball, reflow all day long, and it's just not gonna solder until you actually remove the core, prep that pad, force tin solder on that pad, and only then it will accept solder, which is very unfortunate. A lot of times that's fixed by a lot of heat and a fresh drop of flux, but I didn't want to do that, especially when the core was already on the board. So it was less stressful to just remove the core, rework that pad, and then solder the core back down with minimal amount of heat necessary. And especially considering that it was already reballed with leaded solder, who cares? It wasn't that much of a problem anyway. Okay, so the board's gonna go here. Hopefully it's not too badly twisted, but that's okay. Clean up the probe. And I could use the Black Horse flux for this method to prep the board and clean it. I do use it quite a bit, but I'm starting to use it less and less because I'm starting to notice that it likes to solidify, especially the his later version. This is his latest version that I got. This is like a batch number 3 or whatever. I forget. He's using these funny names that no one will ever remember. So that's why I suggested him not to use names but numbers instead. You know, like 1, 2, 3 or something that people can remember. But he went with some names. It's okay. I'm not his mom, so he can name it however he likes. But it seems like it would harden, even if the board is still hot. It's just becoming a bit more and more challenging to wipe it off the board. And so maybe I didn't apply enough of it. I don't know. So I'm just going to use my Chinese fake Kimbo. It works really well. It's cheap. You can apply it as much as you want. Even if you flooded the whole board, throw it in the ultrasonic. It cleans up very nice, very easy. So who cares? Another thing to note about the mechanic flux is that it's like water when you're blowing hot air on it, or when you're working on it. It's like water, which is kind of annoying because it gets blown off everywhere, and it doesn't like to stick to the part as a result. Same problem with the Steary flux that I use for microsoldering. It's doing the exact same thing. It turns like almost into like a water type. It's becoming very thin, and it gets blown away. So that's why I do not use one flux for everything. There's no such thing. And the sooner you learn it, the better. Many flux will do many things. One flux does one thing good, where the other one completely sucks. So you just need to find the one that does something good, that does it the best, and keep that flux for that particular purpose. Then you find the flux that does something else the best, and keep that flux for that one particular purpose. And what you're gonna end up doing is you're gonna end up saving a lot of money, because you only buy what you need instead of wasting money with the flux trying to do things that it's either not designed to do, or it's just not doing it very well. So you're wasting a lot of it. Like, say for example, for general soldering, just buy something cheap. Try all the cheap flux that you can get for MOSFET replacements, regular chip replacements, things like that. Maybe just prepping the board. Like in this case, I'm using this Chinese Kingbo, which is fake, but it's dirt cheap, and it works reasonably well. So I have absolutely no reason to bring in any kind of fancy, overhyped Northridge fixed flux, or or anything for that matter, that costs more than $1 a gallon. It's just not worth it. We're doing the cleanup. We're not doing any kind of important work here. So, but that's not to say that the cleanup isn't important. Cleanup and the prep is just as important as the final result. because the final result will be as good as you cleaned and prepped the board. Hopefully the memory chips did not get damaged. Looks like they are okay. Sometimes I use a bigger tip for wicking the core. I don't like doing that a whole lot, mainly because it's messy. It's fast, but it's messy. And you got to be careful too, because the bigger tip will have way higher heat transfer. So you could actually damage the pads on the core if you're not careful. So that's why I don't like it. You almost never see me use this. It's very easy to just kind of force it without realizing that you're ripping off the pad off of the core. So that's why I just like to use my good old, what was like a 3mm or something like that tip. Something like that. Don't remember what it is. I have it on the Discord server listed somewhere in the equipment, I think. So if you need one, go check it out. You'll see it. I'm gonna put some more flux in here. See, if this was expensive flux, I would hesitate applying so much of it, you know, and because it's cheap, I don't. So I can clean the cheap with this, like that. Cleaning old flux with new flux, not worry about a thing. Don't care about the cost, because this flux is dirt cheap. And that's exactly why I'm using it. Or one of the reasons why I'm using it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up with the prepping the chips with the reball. You've seen we have a few pads that are ripped off the board under the memory chip, so we're gonna have to take care of those. I'm gonna show you how I test for pads that could potentially get ripped off in the future. So first we're gonna start with a clean soldering iron, and we just basically try to touch the pad and try to move it away gently. If it does not get ripped, it's probably okay. This is not a guaranteed method, but this will most of the time, if the pad is ripped but you can't see it, it will finish it off and it will get it off the board. So I don't see any rip pads in here. The obvious place to test would be the edges. So, or right next to the other pads that got ripped. Sometimes corners will be a giveaway. But in this case, usually these two pads near one by one, they get ripped together, as well as this one here, but I don't see it happening. So, and this one here seems to be holding. Nope, it doesn't. See, it just came right off. I just needed to give it a little bit more push, and the pad came off, and now we know what needs to be fixed. I'm also a little bit skeptical about this pad here. Oh, this one looks okay. Alright, so I'll be fixing that later. Right now I'm going to go finish with the reball of the core and the memory, and hopefully everything goes well. I'll be using my 3D printable stencil. Works absolutely amazing. I'm using it every single time. It works a lot better than any Chinese made stencils, such as this one here. This one was expensive, and I needed a few of them, so I think I have like 3. I got at least 2 of those, but this is dirt cheap and it works like super great, way better than anything else. So who cares? Okay, here we are, back after the reball. Memory is good, 1.2. I think this is 1.8, 5, 12 doesn't matter. Let's see if we can plug this thing in. Hopefully it will power on. 1.5, that's normal. Let's see, if we get a picture, we have a fix. And that would conclude the series of 10 cards repaired by some weirdo on the internet. Alright, let's see, hopefully it posts. If not, maybe more rip pads or pads became loose, like the one that did eventually break away. You just never know. I think it's posting. Yep, there you go. In just a second you'll see a picture. Perfect. So 10 cards, every single one of them fixed, and I am not even a certified or anybody. As a matter of fact, I am a nobody, and probably the biggest loser on the block. I just happen to watch a lot of repair videos. All languages, Chinese. Dude, I don't speak Chinese, and I watched Chinese videos. Some guy dropped me on Discord a while ago an archive of all sorts of Chinese videos. Something about the memory, something about the laptop, schematics. I do not understand a word he said, but I watched. I watched and I watched. Some things I was desperate to know what they were talking about. I used Google Translator to translate the text. But for the most part, I just watched to see what he's doing, how he's doing it. And yeah, a lot of the stuff was there that's kind of outdated and I didn't care for. In China, it's more. They're still working on old GPUs, old laptops, you know, things like that. So a lot of that information was kind of useless. Since I'm in the US, it's kind of outdated and I don't really take anything old because it's kind of not worth it anymore. Unless it's something really old, like an older AGP card that has a value and it makes sense to, you know, try to get it fixed because it has a resale value, you know. So if your resale value is low, I cannot really price the repair in any meaningful way because A, I have to earn some money doing the repair. B, it has to be financially viable, and you know, to a point where I'm gonna remove this pad, move it over here because this pad was kind of squeezed because it's at the very bottom of the board anyway. And I'm just gonna swap that pad over here, so we now have a fresh pad on that chip there. So you know, I have to price the repair, and I also have to stick to the minimum. So whatever the minimum might be, if paying the minimum price for some old card makes no sense, then that's the reason why I refuse to repair certain things, like doing memory upgrades on some Steam Deck stuff or whatever. I don't even know. because I price my repairs based on the device value and not the amount of work I have to do. So that makes, I guess that makes my services attractive. And it also puts me in a position where I have a personal interest in getting the device fixed rather than shuffling through them and just charging a customer for repair, repair attempts, expedite fees, all that. That's a different business model. We all know who I'm talking about. I would probably make a lot more money doing that way, but I like to get things fixed, and especially if I'm already hours into the repair, and the successful repair is going to pay me 3 times as much as the repair attempt. It's just a motivation to keep on going. So it's a system that I designed to sort of force myself into getting things fixed rather than taking advantage of the situation and just get rich off of the other people. So who cares? I'm not going to be preaching you how to do your thing. Do your thing. In any case, we're done with the repair. I'm going to run some tests. Hopefully everything checks out. And that will be it. Don't forget to like, subscribe if you're into this kind of stuff. And I'll see you later. Goodbye. In case you were dying to know, all of these cards, they look nearly identical. Some are 4070 Ti's, one 4080 I believe, and 3 3090s, including the one I just fixed. All are fixed.